Hi, everybody.
Hello.
People are still trickling in, so we'll give it another minute or two. Okay, looks like we're mostly here. All right, so a couple of things. First of all, I just shared with you a Google Doc that some of you have already signed up for, but it's to reserve a space on Wednesday for one-on-one conferences to discuss your research papers. I don't think I built this originally into the syllabus, and that was my mistake. I've always done that in the past. So what's going to happen is if you didn't get that invitation, please let me know. But I think since some people are doing it, most of you have, or all of you have, just go in and reserve a spot. Remember that these are central times. So it's central time, so don't get confused, whatever spot you reserve. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create send an invite to everybody for the whole day, starting at 9 in the morning, going until whatever, 5:30 at night. And then you will just log in whenever it's your time, rather than having to send everybody individual invites. I think that's the easiest way to do it. So I'll log in and I'll be in the conversation all day, and I'll just be meeting with you. So we'll meet one-on-one for 20 minutes. And what I'd like you to do is to kind of present to me the big ideas of the paper, to ask me questions that you have. If you want to talk about offshoots of the other papers that you're looking for, or other bits of research that you've done that you want clarified, this is the time to do it. Doesn't mean that we can't do it other times, but you can do it via email. We could set up individual Zoom conversations, but I want to sort of force the issue by doing it on Wednesday. Some of what you guys have been reading about involves water contamination, and so we're going to be touching on that obviously for today, mostly for tomorrow. And having had that little bit of information might help you a little bit in terms of your papers. But regardless, the papers, this project just involves a lot of heavy lifting on your own, right? You got to just read these things and do the background work and ask me questions. So that's Wednesday. And 20 minutes, I think, should be enough time. What else? I changed the syllabus around for about the 5th time. One of the things that I did was I got rid of the discussion of Cadillac Desert, because it's just too hard to have a discussion over Zoom, I think, an effective discussion. So we're not going to worry about that. Your papers that you turned in for control of nature, I've started grading those, and I'll get them back to you by tonight with some abbreviated comments and a breakdown on your grade based on your analysis and the writing. So you'll have some sense of how to move forward with that. What else? I think that's it. So you have a fair amount coming up in the next week, right? You've got a first draft of the Cadillac Desert paper. You got a second draft of the Cadillac Desert paper. You've got a 5 to 6 or 7 minute presentation of your research paper that you've got to upload to YouTube. And you've got a final exam, right? So it's a lot to do in a week and a half, but that's the block plan. All right. The stuff that I had you guys watch, the videos I had you guys watch for today were pretty short and simple, I think, pretty straightforward. But if you guys have any questions about those or about anything else, we can kind of use this as open office hours. Otherwise, there's not a lot about to talk about today. Hopefully you've been making hay on reading the Cadillac Desert. Does anybody have any initial questions or thoughts about that? Not so much thoughts, I guess. We'll save those for the papers, but anyway, I hope that you guys enjoy this book. It really opened my eyes as someone who grew up in the humid Midwest to be thinking about water this way out west. It's really pretty dramatic. And I think you're also really going to like the videos that we watch of those, which we'll do independently next week. So are there any questions about any of the material?
How's the final exam going to, what is the final exam going to look like?
So for most of you, you're taking this class pass-fail as I originally prescribed it. It'll be essentially a very long open book, open note, take-home problem set, right?
Okay.
And for those of you who, a small number of you who are doing it for a grade, there will be that plus some portion that will be one-on-one discussion with me via Zoom, which will be closed note, like a normal exam.
For our paper project,
Mm-hmm.
you want to know how the study is conducted. Do we need to go into the specifics of the methods, or do you just want them to be known?
It depends on your paper. Some of the papers involve analyses that are probably way above my head, let alone your heads. And some of them are pretty straightforward. So it really depends. If this seems like it's something that's manageable, feel free to dig into the weeds. But at a minimum, I wanted to have you guys to have some sense for, what were the big questions that were being asked here? Why did somebody take the time to do this study? What kind of procedures, methods, techniques were required to get the data they needed to answer those questions? How did they analyze the data? And then what interpretations did they draw? Right? Okay. So if you boil it down to essentially those 4 questions and make sure that you can explain them in in common English without defaulting to lots of scientific jargon and lingo and stuff. Just be able to talk normally. Remember that by the time you get through with this, you're going to know an awful lot about this one paper. And there's a really high probability that everybody else in the class isn't going to have a clue about what you're talking about unless you bring it down to kind of a introductory scientific level.
Okay.
One thing that you should think about too when you're reading through the paper and you're thinking about your presentation. I mean, you don't want to think about your presentation until you understand the paper, right? Job number 1 is just understanding what is going on. But when you get to the point that you're beginning to understand what it's about, then you want to think about how you're going to present that information, right? And you can certainly use and should use some of the figures in the paper. But you may find, for example, when somebody publishes a paper, they're space limited. They can't put in every figure they want. So if there's like a really coarse map of some region in the paper and that's it, maybe you want to use Google Earth and show a couple of slides or, zoom around a little bit while you're talking over it in your YouTube video to kind of set the stage for what the place looks like. You can find photographs of the landscape. You could have satellite photographs of where it is. You could dig up, if they're, for example, if they're talking about water resources. Some of you guys are looking at like, how to clean up a particular spill in some area, whatever. But other papers involve assessing the water resources, the availability of, say, groundwater in some part of the world. And if that's the case, then maybe you want to have a map that shows rainfall patterns, like how much rain does this place get a year compared to other parts of that continent, or I don't know, the population of people or urban centers or something, just to kind of set the stage. You should feel free to kind of flesh it out, particularly the introduction, beyond where the paper goes. The paper is written by professional hydrologists for professional hydrologists. And for us, for our level, we may want to step back a little bit and expand the context. But then when you dig down into the details, you're going to rely more heavily on what they found and what they did.
Oh, I really like my paper. It's pretty interesting.
Good. Yeah, I think most of them are pretty big picture, and you should be able to look at it and say, I kind of get why this is relevant to more people than just, me. And I think you also should be able to, even at first pass, hopefully, you guys were able to get probably at least 50% of what the paper was about on the first reading. It's that second 50% that takes, and particularly the last 20%, that takes a lot more work. Have you guys all uploaded a video to YouTube before? Do you have your own YouTube channel or something? Create one?
No.
Believe me, if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. So, but just don't do it the day of in case there's a glitch.
The only
If you have a
oh, sorry, you go, Graham.
if you have a Google account, it automatically signs you into YouTube, and you can use that Google account or your Cornell Google account to set it up.
The only weird thing would be that you sometimes need an MP4 file instead of whatever something has been recorded as. So just make sure your file is something you can upload to YouTube, and don't record something that you have to then like try to convert, because that can be annoying.
Yeah, you can record in Zoom, which creates MP4 files, which is pretty easy. Or if you have a Mac, I've been using QuickTime, and then exporting it as a lower resolution file so it uploads quicker. But anyway, I can help you with that if you're less tech savvy than me, which I doubt any of you are. And the nice thing about doing it in Zoom is that you can have your little face off to the side while you're talking, while you're sharing your screen with your PowerPoint slides or something. So whatever. But remember, these are just 5 to 7 minutes. So it's actually a surprisingly short amount of time when you're trying to provide some context and get into the details. So you're really going to want to practice this a few times to make sure that you can cram it all in 5 or 7 minutes. And then the only other thing is when you upload it to YouTube, you have the option to make it private or public. And the reason I don't know if you noticed this, but I created this fake name for the YouTube account that I'm using to post the videos to, our course videos, is because I didn't want to make them private, because I tried doing that and I couldn't figure out how to do it easily without having to send you guys individual links all the time for every video. So it doesn't matter to me what kind of name or how you want to post the video, if you want to make it in your name or somebody else's name. But if you make it private, make sure you send not just to me, but to everybody the URL so we can, or the link, so that we can all go watch it, because we're each going to watch each other's presentations like we would if we were in class.
I know, at least for you, because you have the Moodle, so you can post stuff. If you just did unlisted and you linked the video on Moodle, then we could just click the link and it would work that way. But I think for the way we have it, we probably have to do either a mass email or public, because otherwise it'll be kind of annoying.
Yeah, I mean, you guys could send me your links individually and I can just send them out en masse to everybody. So you don't have to, and so everybody's not sending them to everybody else. That might be the easiest way to do it. Let me consolidate them. But anyway, that's not till next week. You got a lot of time. Again, your main concerns right now, your two main concerns are making sure that you're working your way through Cadillac Desert and that you are digging deep into the research, into your research paper. And let me just say this one more thing about the research paper. You really need to be able to, in your own mind, as you're reading this stuff, you really need to be able to translate everything you're reading into plain English. I would say that by and large, articles from this journal aren't written, they're not generally swamped with chemical or mathematical equations. They're not generally swamped with jargon, but they're still, you know, professional papers. And so it is possible that you can kind of, if you, unless you're focusing really hard, you'll get to a sentence or two and you'll kind of just read it and you think you understand it, but you don't really, because it's got some jargon in there and it's dealing with some concepts you can't really wrap your brain around. You need to go through this paper phrase by phrase and make sure you can put into plain English in your own brain what every single sentence means. And if you get to a sentence that you just don't fully understand, that's a good topic for us on Wednesday. Okay? So use me on Wednesday to make sure that you can, I'll do my best. I may not be able to answer everything, but to help you kind of connect all the dots. All right. I posted to YouTube already. I think there are 4 or 5 videos. It's a little bit longer than, certainly a lot longer than what you watched for today, which was quite short. And it's about water pollution and ways to remediate water pollution. So you're going to want to spend a little bit more time. That might be, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half worth of videos there. So you're going to want to get through those. There's no specific homework related to that. I'm just letting you keep going on the readings you have. And tomorrow afternoon in this session, we're going to do a couple of breakout rooms and go through some more sort of real life thought experiments related to cleaning up pollution, spills, plumes, that sort of thing. Okay, so you guys all have your marching orders. Watch the videos. Keep plugging away on your 2 readings and sign up for a slot. Let's see if anybody's signed up for slots yet. Oh yeah, so there's 6 or so slots. It looks like the slots in the latter half of the day are going quick. So unless you want the 9 o'clock slot, someone's going to get the 9 o'clock slot. Maybe many of you may not even be up by then, but make sure if you're not an early riser, you jump on those later slots. All right. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? No? Okay. Well, email me if anything comes up. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow at this time. All right. Bye.
Bye.